Hey everybody, welcome to this third episode of Caregiver Coffee. My name is Matt Estrad. I'm a gerontologist in the greater New Orleans area, and I've been partnering with the Council on Aging in St. Tammany for 5 years now as a caregiver support group facilitator for at least four times a month in both Covington and Slidell. Since the COVID pandemic, we've been doing these via Zoom. So if you're interested in learning more about the caregiver support group, please send me an email, which is emails below, matt@carepartnermentoring.com. So I'm glad that you're joining us live. If you're watching the recording, I appreciate that as well. During these 10 to 15 minutes, we'll be talking today about self-care for the caregiver. So I invite you to add questions if you have any questions, comments, and I'll be looking for those. And if this is after the live stream, you can still put comments and questions. I hope you'll like this and share it and get this information out to people all over Facebook. So let's go ahead and get started. So most of us have been on a plane before. We've been on a commercial airplane, and most of that group has paid attention to the pre-flight instructions that the flight attendant gives us. And one of those things includes the fact that if the cabin pressure of the plane drops below a certain level at a certain altitude, these usually yellow oxygen masks are going to come popping down out of the ceiling. And these are things that when that happens, they recommend that you put them on. It's got an elastic back, and you put it on like this. So that is recommended when those pop down from the ceiling. Now, they also tell us that when this happens, if you're with someone who is not able to put the mask on themselves, that you are to put it on yourself first and then take care of them. So an example might be if you have somebody who is a child, they're not able to figure out how to put it on. You're going to put yours on first, and you're going to put theirs on. Well, why do you do that? Is that selfish? No, it's not selfish. It actually makes a lot of sense, because if you should pass out because you don't have enough oxygen before you put yours on, so if you put theirs on before yours, you risk passing out. And then if you pass out as the person who's taking care of them, then you're not going to have it on yourself, obviously, and you're also not going to be able to put it on the person that you would be helping. And it's a common metaphor that's used with caregiving, in that you need to take care of yourself as the caregiver if you're going to be the best possible caregiver for your loved one, whether they have dementia, whether they have cancer, whatever the condition is. We have to take care of ourselves as the caregiver, and it's not a selfish act. It's actually a selfless act, because sometimes you may feel as a caregiver that it's harder to take care of yourself, or that you would rather take care of your loved one than take care of yourself. Sometimes it's easier to do that, and it feels like the right thing, but really we need to take care of ourselves. So what does self-care mean? And let me show you this graphic. So we're going to talk about self-care in each of these areas just very briefly, and if you would like more information on this, this is adapted and based on an article that I put on my website about 2 weeks ago. So shoot me an email or leave me a comment, and I'll send that over to you. So we got physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, social, and financial/legal. So these are all opportunities. These are areas, these are domains where I'm recommending that you start to look more closely at taking care of yourself in each of these areas. Now, it could be easy to feel overwhelmed by looking at this list, but really if you start with, you pick which one you want to do, and just start doing something. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. So find whatever one you feel is easiest, whichever one is going to be more fun, etc. So let's get started. So physical. So in the physical domain, some possibilities are, just think about your physical self, how you're feeling, if you have any chronic conditions. So you want to make sure that you are going to your well visit every year and getting your blood work and getting your head to toe assessment, and you're getting a handle on your health. If you have chronic conditions, if you have a heart condition, diabetes, anything like that, you also want to be seeing your specialist as recommended, so that you can keep those conditions under control. Physical also includes some kind of exercise. You don't have to join a gym. You don't even have to leave your house. And in fact, if you stay tuned to the Coast Facebook page that we're on right now, Christy actually had she's here, I think it's every day. She'll have some kind of stretching, some kind of workout, some kind of assessment where you can get some physical activity. So when it comes to physical activity, pick something that you enjoy doing that's going to get you moving, and it's also going to help you, I believe, mentally, which is another area that we'll go into next. So this includes the potential of seeing a therapist on a regular basis. And now that telehealth and telemedicine is more prominent because of COVID, there are opportunities to work with therapists here locally through telemedicine if you can't get out of the house or you don't want to get out of the house, or even people around the country. So that's an opportunity. And then you can also consider finding a coach to help work with you and your different goals and everything. And I've found that through working with people, that when you can help them figure out what the next step is, that things seem a lot more manageable and easier to do, and it kind of a coach will help you, just like a physical workout coach will help you kind of like make a plan, follow through with that plan, and do things in bite-sized pieces. And this what we're talking about right now is some form of coaching, although we're remote and I'm not working with you individually. These are some things that a coach could talk with you about. And then we get to the to emotional, and this goes hand in hand also. This kind of crosses over with seeing a therapist. I highly recommend that. And one more idea about I want to go back to the therapist idea, is if you are still employed, your employee health insurance might include EAP, which is the Employee Assistance Program, and this gives you access via phone and maybe Zoom now, but definitely access via phone to speak with a social worker or some kind of therapist about the situation that you're in. So check with your human resources and your insurance company to see if that is available to you as a caregiver. Something big with emotional is the support groups, and I've already mentioned that I'm a care partner facilitator for the Coast groups, and these are groups that meet monthly, sometimes weekly or bi-weekly. These don't have to be, of course, the group that doesn't have to be the group that I lead. Some people can't make the time. Some people don't want to travel. So whatever the case, I encourage you to get into a support group for the emotional support that they bring. I mean, just being in the room with people who are in a similar situation, caring for someone, I've seen work wonders for people to feel like they're not alone. Is just people comment and say how big that is. So whether it's the group that I'm with at Coast or it's other groups, certainly consider that and check it out. And if you can't make the Coast groups on Tuesdays, whether they're noon or 6 p.m., shoot me an email, and I can let you know about all the other groups that I know about in the greater New Orleans area, both on the North Shore and the South Shore. And hey, if you're out of state and you're watching this, shoot me an email, and I might be able to help direct you to some in your local area. Next is spiritual. And this is an area or a domain that many people they ignore or they don't think about it. And we as practitioners are also guilty of not paying attention to this very important domain. I think one of the reasons why, whether it's a physician or a social worker or a therapist or name your provider, why they don't bring up the spiritual aspect is because it might feel uncomfortable. After all, as professionals, no one wants to be, making people feel uncomfortable, making the client or the patient feel uncomfortable. And spirituality, just bringing that up, might make the person, the client, feel uncomfortable. So, I have a call to action for providers to at least just bring up the topic and say, hey, are you religious? Are you spiritual? And then just being okay with that answer. If they say no, then that's okay, you move on. And if they are, you can ask, okay, what faith are you in? And really, this is just trying to lead that the caregiver, to thinking about utilizing their faith community as a means of support in spirituality, or in group practice, in prayer, in any kind of ministries or groups that are at that particular faith community. So as a caregiver, I'm encouraging you to think about that as a domain, as somewhere you should consider self-care if you are religious or spiritual. So a lot of the work that I do is in the spiritual realm, and I won't talk much about that, but you can certainly send me an email and I'll tell you more about it. But whatever your case is, I encourage you to at least not ignore this. And if you're a provider or practitioner, think about this. Please consider thinking about bringing this up, because I really feel it's our duty to at least give our clients the opportunity to think about this domain. Next is social, and this certainly has been a challenge, hasn't it, in the COVID pandemic era that we find ourselves in. It's that isolation, right? It's that we're not supposed to gather, at least right now. In late June, we're getting closer to that, and we're gathering. Some groups are gathering. The activity centers are not meeting yet, but we still should find a way, whether it's virtually, like right now, if we're on using webcams, getting together with family and groups for social interaction, or if it is safe in certain cases and you're comfortable with it, actually gathering with people. The senior activity centers that we have with the meals and the activities and everything are just, they're just amazing things that we should continue to do when it's safe. So remember the going out, even if you're going out with friends, it doesn't have to be a huge group or at a center, but think about that social aspect. And lastly, we come to financial and legal. So we talked a little bit about this last week. We talked about advanced care planning. We talked about healthcare proxy, dual power of attorney, a living will, and things like that. So I feel like it's self-care to have those things in place, even though we talked about it last week. This is part of self-care, because you don't want to be concerned just with your loved one who you're taking care of, but you need to have these things in place for yourself so that you have peace of mind. For instance, what happens to your loved one if you pass away, or you go into the hospital, you're not able to speak for yourselves? Well, just doing this, checking things, getting these things in order, and having these tentative plans ready are going to help you and give you peace of mind. So that's legal, where we talk about it includes the medical, but also the financial. Like if you weren't able to care for somebody, would they have to go into a home? Would that be the next logical thing, or could they be with other family? And if they would have to possibly go into a care community, how would that be paid for? So are there assets that are set aside for that? And while I'm not going to go into any specific financial advice, because everybody's situation is different, and I am also not trained in financial activities to give such advice, I encourage you to find somebody who is a financial planner. Let them see what your situation, let them look at your assets, and and see, okay, if your loved one did have to go into a facility, how long would that money last, based on the average cost and the type facility that they might be going into. So that is really just like a quick overview of caregiver self-care. And again, going back to the analogy, the metaphor of we have to take care of ourselves. We have to put that oxygen mask on ourselves first before we can put it on our loved one who's going to be next to us. Because if something happens to us, if we pass out, then who's going to put the mask on or take care of our loved one? Now, what's really interesting and unfortunate at the same time is that many caregivers feel guilty when they start taking care of themselves, whether they go to a support group or whether they go out to lunch with friends, whether they go even to a doctor's appointment or to work out. Some people feel guilty that they're leaving their loved one, that they're getting a break and that they're enjoying things where their loved one is still at home or might be somewhere else. So, and that's not something that I can say, just don't feel guilty. It's not that easy, although I wish it was. But I have found that these domains of of self-care that I just went over, they help each other. So, for example, if you feel guilty, try going to a support group, and it's many times in support groups where they're supporting each other and they're encouraging other caregivers to take a break and to not feel guilty, and it's coming from fellow caregivers and not just a gerontologist. And when it comes from your fellow caregivers, I feel like it carries a lot more weight and credibility because they're in their same shoes and they're also going out and they're getting self-care for themselves. So they're setting a really good example. So if you feel guilty, try going to a support group to start. Also, going to EAP, the employee assistance program, or a therapist by phone or in person is going to help you deal with those thoughts of guilt, so that you do go to the gym, so you do go to the doctor, so you can go out with friends and have lunch, or just go to a movie by yourself, because we need you to be well as the caregiver. We want everyone, including you. We all want to age independently in the community as long as we can, as healthy as we can, and we can only do that if we're preserving our health. And remember, we can only be the best caregiver that we can be if we're taking care of ourselves. So with that, I'm going to close, and I'm encourage you to like this video, to share this video, to email me at matt@carepartnermentoring. Yes, it's still up on the screen. If you have any questions, if you have any topics, I appreciate everybody who has sent me an email in the past. And I hope that you have a great day. And I will see you next Monday at Caregiver Coffee. Take care.